This is Mara. Here are your price targets for Tuesday. We ended the day at $20.64, down more than 12%. The day's low, $20.60. The day's high, $24.89. This is where we landed. To the north side takes us to -2 standard deviations and resistance at 20.96. Above that, at the middle of the trend and the baseline, and a potential take profit area, 22.39. Above that, at 2 standard deviations, 23.83, 24.57, and at 4 standard deviations, roughly $25.30. Now to the south side, -3 standard deviations and another level of support, 2021 and 1953. Looking left, note the gap that I had previously talked about closed right there. But let me just clean this up. Somehow my target moved here. Let me turn on the magnet so it helps me. There we go. All right. So this gap finally closed to the downside. This was the landmine that I was tracking. So that is no longer a threat to our accounts to the downside. Of course, there are other threats to look out for. So that started at 23.02. So that is done. And then this gap takes us down to 24.03, and that one is done. I have not tracked Mara in a little bit, so I am cleaning my chart up along with you. So that's closed. That one closed to the downside at 25.74, and we have got a gap here from the past that took us up to 30.91-ish, or 89 I put, so that's done. And then we started to go down from there. And now the gap that I am tracking, that is the final gap that I am tracking. So we're done there, but now some more pain ahead. There are gaps to the south side. This one takes us down to 17.54. This one takes us down to 13.70. I've traded this multiple times in the past, so that is still a threat to our account. And ignore all the horizontal lines down there, previous support and resistance that I've marked out. All right, that is it, and all these other gaps that I never completed that are done. This one. And that one's done, it looks like. I'll take a look at this on a bigger time frame and clean this up a little bit. But that's Mara. Now I want to show you MO. This is my gap and go trades for this weekend that I talked about on Sunday night. And I mentioned this gap was going to close, and it did right out of the gate on Monday. So that took us up to 42.40. And note, we went back down to the middle of the trend, and in this case, support from where we were, bounced up to resistance, back down to support, grinding along the baseline, inching our way higher up to resistance, and now we'll have to figure out where this is going to go. But because we are overextended on the 5-minute time frame at 70 and above, we're going to start cracking. So I think this will eventually make our way down here and then see price go down for a bounce up. But this gap to the downside is still a threat to our account. I will mark that out. Oops. Now I have to remove the magnet. And this gap opened up last week. I forgot to mention that over the weekend. I forgot to draw it out, but that started on March 6th. And because we finally made this gap closure, I will pick another gap trade for you on Sunday. But that's done. But now to the downside we go. And I will not be tracking this to the downside. I like to track the gaps to the upside. Once they fill, I like to get another one on the board for you. And finally, let's recap SQQQ. I mentioned this on Sunday that I traded this. I bought in at 10.49, and look at this, took me all the way down again to this line, and we bounced up. We filled this gap at 10.95, and I set a sell order Sunday night at $11.19. We made it as high, we wicked as high as 11.24, and let me just delete this and then I'll put it back so you can see it better. But this is my sell point right here, and it went just a little bit higher, but that's okay. I was comfortable selling where I did last night because I got out right after the gap fill at 11.19, and I sold out at 11.20, and boom. And then this gap to the south side, whoops, touched right there. So we're done with that one, and that took us down to 10.68. We are in an upward channel, even though the RSI is turning down for Tuesday. In general, we're going up. And now I will mark this back up. So I bought in at 10.49, sold out at 11.20. And that gave me a return of 6.82 from March 7th. And I will not be a buyer again until price falls down here. And then I will consider looking at it. Or, look at this. There's another gap to the north side that will take us to roughly 12.06 if we are so lucky as to get there. All right, that's a look at SQQQs. And now I want to take a look at the last losing stock here, the last stock, Meta, on the board here. I have about, at this point, probably 300 stocks that I'm tracking within the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund. And this is Meta, down 4.42%. I don't really track Meta much anymore. 483.59. Right? We've got a gap when we eventually fill. Starting right here. This is very doable to get to this level. Again, price tends to stay within -2 and 2 all day long, but of course we could be going down and then getting farther and farther away from that. All right, let me go over some levels. Oh, wait a minute. First, this gap closed, touched right there. This one touched right there. So I know that there was some downside action, and it touched and we're done. What else? This one is still a threat to our accounts to the south side, and I will mark that out. Oh, we've got this one too. Wow. Very gappy here. So we gapped, we went up, so I anticipate price to fill to the downside whenever it does. All right, we touched here, and I'm going to anticipate, this is already starting to turn, so I anticipate a bounce off of this line, which acts as support. and very doable to take us down to this level. But the day's low, 476, the day's high, 497.32. And that is a look at Meta. If there is a ticker you'd like me to go over, please let me know.